we got to play really good football all three phases. These guys are a well-coached football team. They're playing with a lot of confidence. They're playing at home. Coach has done a nice job. They've got some really good players on offense. Got a really good quarterback, strong arm, can make some plays with his legs. Have receivers, I said, similar to Nikhil. They move him around, get him the ball. Defense is solid. They don't give up a lot of points, and they score a lot of points. They've been averaging almost around 35, 40 points. Defense is stingy. They don't give up a lot of big plays. So this is a good match for us to go up there and have to execute very well if we're going to win this football game.
Coach, they do some things with their quarterback runs, side runs, and
yeah.
how do you make sure that you keep them contained?
Well, you got to have good eyes. You can't have dirty eyes. In other words, when you have the quarterback, you got to make sure you watch the quarterback, and that's part of college football that makes it so difficult. Pro football quarterbacks, they make too much money to run. They don't get paid to run; they get paid to throw. College football a little bit different; it's a different element, and every scheme you have to realize that the quarterback, especially when they run the RPOs and they run those things, he's a available asset to run. And if you get out of your lane and you lose sight of it, and they do a lot of what I call deception. They have people running across formations and taking handoffs, and all of a sudden, I got him, he got him. Oh, nobody, we receive, right? Because the quarterback's running for a touchdown. So we got to have clean eyes. That's important.
Herm, is he one of the more physical running quarterbacks?
Yeah, he's big. He's a big man, athletic. I think he's about 6'5", 230. He's a big man that can run. You don't realize how big he is until you watch him on tape, and he's hard to tackle. Against UCLA, he makes a great play. UCLA is actually leading the game, and if they get him on a stop, maybe they hold him to a field goal, but he gets away from it. Somebody comes around, and free runner tries to hit him up high, and he shugs him off and makes it, and he takes off, and yeah, he's a big, powerful guy. The coach has done a nice job, and a real strong arm, too, can make all the throws.
Coach Manny was elaborating on his sickness and what he was playing through and throwing up in between plays. So what does it say about Manny?
And that's football, but I know when he was going through that, I went over there and laughed at him. I said, "You feel better now, don't you?" "Yeah, I feel better." "Good." I've seen it on the sidelines. I've seen it all. Trust me. And it didn't shock me. I said, "Is it all out of your system?" He says, "Yes." "Okay, you're okay now?" I said, "Yeah, okay, good. Well, go throw a touchdown then." But yeah, he's a tough guy, and he was dealing with some pain. I mean, he was a little bit, under the weather, and then they had to give him an IV at halftime and all that stuff. But that's football. It's a mentally tough game. You got to be a tough guy. The only guys that aren't hurting or not sore, they're the guys that don't play. When you play football, you're never feeling good during the season. That's what the off season's for, and I think any football player will tell you that. But I like his toughness, his mental makeup. That's why, he's a good player, because he's a mentally tough guy. Mutual agreement that he is no longer with the program.
He said that he didn't want to come. He didn't think he'd have to come out or would come out. Did you think at any point that he would have to come out just because he wasn't feeling well?
No. Well, after he was, bent over a couple times, I said, I know you're not coming out of this game. He goes, "No." I said, "Okay, all right, have some more water. Here's the play we want to run." Yeah, that's how the conversation went. I didn't never think he was going to leave the game. No. No, that's just you've been around it too long, and the guys that aren't going to leave. I mean, they're not coming out. It's just not. I mean, now sometimes you try to protect them. If there was a point to where I thought he was in harm's way, and you always check with the medical staff and say, "Is he okay?" They clear it. Now, if they ever tell me, "Hey, look, coach," then he's out. Then he's out. I mean, I always check with the medical staff when guys are, whatever's happened to them, and I look at them and they say, "Coach, he can go," and I say, "Okay." And then sometimes I've been in games where I said, "No, he's not going. I'm taking him out," and I've done that too. But he was in a place where we got a great medical team. They said he's good, coach, and Manny said he's good. I said okay. But I was watching him to make sure. I checked. I made sure I went and have a conversation with him after every series to make sure he was okay.
When you watch game film of the defense, what
Yeah, not setting the edge a couple times on those runs that got outside, and then some poor tackling. And you know, we've been very inconsistent, not a whole game, but all of a sudden in a quarter or two. And the stress is on this, when they get into your back end of your defense, you got to have good tacklers back there. The safeties have to tackle well in this system, you know, because when they get inside the linebackers, there's no one to stop them except safety. A lot of times the corner has to be involved in it when they crack us. When they take the wide receiver and crack the support guy, the corner has to come up and crack, and that's what basically what San Diego State did. They cracked our support player, and the corners had to tackle. So you have to be a willing tackler. You have to be a participant in playing tackle football. You know, you hear these corners say they're cover corners, not so much. You know, when they crack the support, you have to participate in being a tackler, and that's part of it. I anticipate him playing. Yep. Yeah, he won't go. No, not this week. He's right there. You know, we'll find out probably tomorrow. Maybe a game time decision. Yeah, we're a little wounded like everybody. They've played 5 games now. So, and that's the thing with football. You know, and this is where we always say, you know, teams that can continue to have success are teams that have depth. You know, depth is important because all of a sudden, when you have no depth, you run out of guys to play. And also, guys have to play 60, 70 plays maybe rather than 30 or 40 because you have a rotation. You know, so that messes up everybody. And it messes up in practice, too, when guys can't participate in practice because now you're down numbers, and those numbers are important. So we hopefully some of these guys will get well for us. Well, I think that they'll understand that the crowd will be very boisterous. They'll be loud. I went there one time when I was at Cal, and we played them. Coach Crowder was the coach, and they had Cliff Branch and Cullen Bryant and J.V. Kane, and I think the running back was Charles Davis. I went there as a freshman, and I can remember they were a pretty good football team. I think they ended up 8-3 that year or something like that. And I was a freshman, you know, college football, you're a freshman, you go, and they were in the Big 8, I believe it was then. If I'm going way back, I know. And that's the last time I had actually been in that stadium. But beautiful atmosphere, I know. Just watching it on television, crowds are boisterous. They sit right behind you, it looks like to me. So you can almost, if you're a beer drinker, you can actually, you know, have somebody's beer because they leave it right there behind the bench. Make sure our guys don't do that. But they're boisterous. They get after it, you know, and they're loud in there, and that's part of it. And that's part of going on the road. You gotta deal with that. Like I say, I love going on the road. I love our atmosphere here. The experience that I'm gaining for me right now is going into different venues and watching how the crowds act in those venues. That's fun for me. I mean, to go to Washington, and, you know, I've been there before, but not since they renovated the stadium, to watch the crowds. I mean, that's college football. That's what makes it so unique. You know, you go to these great venues, and college football has tradition. They got a lot of fan base. You know, those are the games that the parents go and their kids go to the school, and it just kind of goes down, you know, and it's funny. You go in there and you watch what people, you kind of watch how they do something. Every stadium has something. Has some little thing, you know. And you, like Washington, when they did I guess they turned I don't know what that was, the cell phones on, they had the lights, and they were playing the music. I was like, it's pretty interesting, you know. So you just, I'm caught up in it too. For like a second or two, I sit and watch it, and it's pretty good. Pretty good. They're doing good, you know. But then you go back to the game.
Last one, Jeff.
You don't necessarily like to be in the bubble, but you've been there. Have you gotten the quality of work that you want?
Yeah, and the reason because of the field, the conditions, you can't take players out there. And, you know, I'm one of those guys, I rather practice efficient and with speed rather than sloppy. There were times in Kansas City that we had a built-in place. Well, it was wet outside or cold outside. Could have went outside, and I just said, well, no, what we'll do, we'll open the doors and let the cold come in and play on a good surface. Because I want efficient practices. I don't want sloppy practice. I'm not one of those coaches that say we got to go play in it. Well, we'll play in it when we play in it. well, let's practice real well first, and then we'll adapt to it. So I'm on that side of it, and I say that as a former player. I mean, you know, I can remember with Dick Vermeil, we didn't have a bubble, and we were going outside with Dick. I mean, it's just, and I can remember his practices were 2.5, 3 hours, and in JFK, going across the street from the vet, and I can remember those big old garbage cans. We used to put firewood in the garbage cans, and because it was so cold, and it was a little fire, and one day one of the guys' jerseys caught on fire. I'm like, but it's so cold out there, you know, it's like cold. When we're not in, we're running over here warming our hands up, and one of the guys' capes was on fire. I said, what else is new? You know, Philadelphia, I mean, that's what we do. But, you know, I just believe if you go inside and get it done, and you can coach better in there, you know, because well, I always hate when you go out in the cold and everybody says you get tough. Well, here's what happens. Players are standing like this, and the coaches do that too now. They want to be tough guys. They ain't so tough. They got their hands in their pockets, and it's like, and you see guys, no one's talking because everybody's trying to stay warm. Well, why would you do that when you got a dome? I mean, you know, it's kind of like, there's this place right there. You could go in there and practice. Why would you stand out here and do this? That's just me. You know, that's just me.